So cool. How many
8 to
gatakas?
5.
How many gatakas is that?
16, I think.
Yeah. So over the course of 16 gatakas, that is so cool. Uh, you will then have a choice at the end of every 6-minute break, a choice for watchfulness to assess, what do I need? What does this next session need? Is it clarity? That is, so, or dullness? Is dullness the issue, or is excitation the issue? For this next session, or right now, and that I can anticipate through the next session. So if excitation is the issue, meaning that you need to relax, then Shavasana is a very good position to choose there. And if you're beginning to feel a little drowsy, then you would choose one of the other three, which it really promotes clarity because of the muscular tension involved in sitting, and then definitely in standing, and then the movement of walking. You're not going to fall asleep in walking meditation. I've never seen it. Or standing either. People do bob their heads frequently while sitting, however, but I've never seen it while standing. So you can see that how this works. So because what we really need to do, we're at the beginning of our shamatha practice, is remedial relaxation, because we need to develop the skill of relaxation in order to get anywhere in practice. We're going to begin practicing in Shavasana. And then what we are going to be doing while we are deepening our relaxation with the natural benefits of Shavasana, we are going to be training ourselves in the first balancing act. And that balancing act is to break the habitual association of deep relaxation and dullness, falling asleep. So that the first balancing act, what we're going to be doing here with our first meditation, is to really be what I call establishing the base of relaxation. And Shavasana is very good for that. A good choice as an asana position to do that. And then the best way of really developing relaxation, of deeply relaxing, is not to do what I did starting about 30 years ago in one of my first meditation practices, which was actually self-hypnosis, which is to think about that extraordinary day on the beach at Railay Beach in Thailand under a coconut tree, and etc., and the sounds of the surf and all of that. So visual images and mental images are not the best way to relax. What the Buddha taught was to focus on tactile sensations, the sense of touch. So that's what we're going to be doing. Establishing, first of all, the base of relaxation by focusing on tactile sensations while in the meditative posture of the supine posture, or Shavasana. And then while we're doing that, we are going to be training ourselves in the first balancing act, breaking the habitual association of deep relaxation and dullness. So in any of these postures that we adopt for our meditation, when we are focusing on the sense fields, one of the sense fields, what we are doing is we are focusing on a single sense field. Buddhism describes all of our experience comes to us through 6 senses rather than 5. So it's the 5 physical senses, and then the 6th is mental experience. So we are going to be really focusing, what we are going to be using to develop stability is the 5 senses, and especially the one sense of touch, the tactile sense. So whenever we are focused on one of the five senses, and tomorrow we'll be working with the auditory and visual senses as well as tactile before we enter the mental. But whenever you are working with tactile sensations, for instance, what we are doing is developing this skill called bare attention. And that means that you are isolating a single sense field and focusing only on that. And this becomes a really, so in this very fundamental first meditation that you're going to be doing, you are really going to be developing and experimenting with very profound skills. There's a sutra, it's called the Sutra of Bahia, describing a shipwrecked sailor who walked up from southern India to find the awakened one up north, long journey. And no GPS, no Facebook page to find out, where did he post from last. But he was able to find the Buddha, finally. And he just asked him, how do I wake up like you? And the Buddha replied, O Bahia, in the seen there is only the seen. In the heard there is only the heard. In the felt there is only the felt. What the Buddha was describing there was bare attention. You isolate one sense field and give your full moment-to-moment bare attention to only tactile sensations. So that's what we're going to be doing to establish the base of relaxation. And then one thing that you'll notice also, as you set out in establishing this balancing act, deeply relaxing but maintaining your clarity, is that at the beginning of your meditation, your mind is clear. And it's probably not going to get more clear than it is at the beginning of your meditation, at least at the beginning. It's possible after you develop some skill with some later techniques. But you can just assume that the beginning of your meditation is going to be your best, you're going to experience your best clarity. So what you do is you notice the degree of clarity that you have at the beginning of your meditation, and then try to maintain that. And then if you notice that you are slipping towards dullness and becoming drowsy, the trick is just to notice it right away, before you start snoring, or before somebody pokes you. So you notice as you are beginning to drift towards drowsiness. And then for now, all we'll say is that you inhale clarity. Just by focusing on the tactile sensations of the inhalation, so it's not have a visual image of clarity like a bright sun or something like that, but you simply focus on the tactile sensations of the inhalation or associated with the inhalation, and just notice a brightening of your attention. Okay, so we'll do a meditation now, and this one then invites you to use the Shavasana asana, Shavasana, corpse pose, and so you can distribute your mats. And if you need to use the restroom, go ahead, because we don't want you to be distracted by that while you're trying to focus. And if you don't need to use the restroom, you can get yourself set up for meditation. The bottom two are seconds rather than minutes.
I think this is the one that we got first.
Yeah. I don't really even need a timer for this one. I'll use the power. So if you have any lower back pain, it can be helpful to put a bolster under your knees. In Singapore, an Iyengar, a very good Iyengar teacher, told me that if you are if your head is flat on the ground and your chin is higher than your forehead, then you should put a pillow under your head. So the idea, I think this is a little high, because your forehead should be the same elevation as your chin. And so it could be that you need just a folded blanket or something, but one of these bolsters is probably too much. And if you have real back pain, you can put your feet on a chair, lie on the ground and elevate your feet on a chair. And depending on the length of your femur, you can put, if you have a long femur, you can elevate your feet on a cushion so that the idea is that your feet should be higher than your knees. And this will flatten your sacrum on the floor. So this is the basic position that your yoga teachers instruct you in. Your hands are at your side with your palms up. And your feet are out at about 30 degrees. Withdraw your awareness from the sights and sounds of the room into the domain of your body. And give your full moment-to-moment attention to tactile sensations only. Noticing first the feelings of solidity and firmness where your body is contacting the floor. Give your mind a holiday, and for the brief time of this meditation, release all fantasies of the future, all memories of the past, and focus only on the sensation of touch. And throughout the meditation, try to keep your body as still as possible. Don't give in to the urge to itch your nose. A still body reflects stillness of your mind. Notice now the degree of clarity that you have. And try to maintain this degree of clarity, even as we practice relaxing ever more deeply. Now let your attention roam throughout the body wherever it will, noticing whatever tactile sensations announce themselves. Whether it's an itch on your scalp, some trembling in a muscle tissue. Just notice it as the experience of a tactile sensation. In the felt, there is only the felt. So you are not navigating your body with a mental map or overlaying a concept of good or bad or desirable or undesirable, or even naming or identifying. Focus only on the sense of touch. And if you discover any pain or any tension, let your breath be drawn to it as if magnetically. And then release that tension or pain on the next exhalation, deepening your relaxation as if with an inaudible sigh. As you deeply relax, if you notice that your attention is beginning to contract into itself and you are becoming dull or slipping towards drowsiness, enhance the brightness of your attention on the in-breath. And take a fresh, keen curiosity in the discovery of these physical sensations. Try to distinguish in the experience of your body a tactile sensation from a conceptual overlay on that tactile sensation. And discard any conceptual overlay on the next exhalation. Deepen your relaxation with each out-breath. As you establish this base of relaxation, you're experimenting with the first balancing act. Balancing deep relaxation while maintaining clarity. If you notice that the quality of your mindfulness is becoming drowsy or dull, focus on tactile sensations associated with the inhalation. And expand your awareness again to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Stretch your legs and your arms overhead. And then gently roll over to your right side. And sit up. And then return to your seat. Are there any comments or questions about that?
It's really hard not to go down this.
Yeah. It's a well-practiced habit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any of you meditators were able to relax deeply and still maintain clarity? It's, it's surprisingly easy to learn, isn't it? And by the end of the night, it may be, you'll know why. And did anybody have the experience that they were feeling a bit dull when they started the meditation, and then they now feel more refreshed? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a common experience. So this, when you're able actually to, and you really begin to develop, because this was just, we were focusing on bare attention rather than clarity, or really increasing, because we were talking about maintaining clarity, but you can really increase clarity. And once you, with these same basic principles, and once you learn to deeply relax and to maintain and then increase your clarity, what people report, and this is my experience too, that you can do, the amount of time that you spend in this meditation is worth 2 to 4 times the amount of time napping. And so this really, when you really develop this then, I can't meditate because I just had lunch. or it's afternoon and I always have a collapse mid-afternoon. It's evening. I can't possibly meditate. I'm wiped out. Now, when you really begin to develop this, it no longer is it not a reason to meditate because you're too drowsy, but it becomes a reason to meditate. Isn't that weird? That you can actually feel refreshed and revived by meditating, rather than just be exposed, and kind of deepen your dullness that you start with. I have a friend in the fashion business in New York who, it's a high-powered business, right? And he wrote to me while I was in India and said, wow, and he was talking exactly about this, doing a 5-minute Shamatha meditation of balancing, relaxation, and clarity. And he said, wow, 10 minutes ago I was flatlined. Now I'm raring, And it's, so this is the, a basic skill, but it has the potential for just changing the way that you approach your day. And so, even though I'm getting back into the coffee habit, now, just because I like coffee, but it's not going to last for that much longer because it's kind of a novelty again now after being in India. But you try. It's when you're beginning to feel the dullness set in mid-afternoon or whatever. Instead of getting a double shot, just meditate for 5 minutes. And you'll know exactly what kind of meditation to be doing coming up, because we're going to really begin to cultivate that. How do you go about actually increasing your clarity? So we're doing a time-lapse account now of your meditation career here. So now you have successfully established the base of relaxation. You've got it nailed, balancing relaxation and clarity, right? So you're no longer really susceptible to falling asleep every time you deeply relax. Now, when it's appropriate, we begin to concern ourselves with stability. But we don't do that before it's appropriate. So what does appropriate mean? It means that you can begin to add stability without becoming tense, without upsetting your balance of clarity and relaxation. So this, you could say, would be like a mother who, when she has a 9-month-old crying infant, does she lecture it and say, come on now, toughen up? If you're going to cry every time you're hungry or tired, you're never going to be able to hold a job in this competitive environment. It'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? But that's kind of the way that we approach our meditation practice. We try to demand stability before it's really ready. Before we have established a base of relaxation and balanced relaxation and clarity. And so when we do that, when we use the strict dad approach or the irrational mom approach, and try to introduce stability before it's appropriate to, what we're doing is adding tension, right? And so we are destabilizing that base of relaxation, and tension is just by definition counterproductive. So what we need to do, the balance that we're striking is relaxation and clarity. It's also relaxation and effort. So if the degree of our effort is tensing us up so that we are losing our base of relaxation, we're not going to get anywhere. And you might as well just give up your attempt to stabilize meditation and go back and focus on relaxation, and then you are actually then you are on the path rather than just on the path of frustration. the while we are training our mind then, and before we have successfully trained our mind to develop stability, we are constantly in this ditch on the left side of the road of excitation. So this is, what this means then in the analogy of the radio station then is the one that I got started on first. So here, instead of heading out to Saskatoon and the radio station fades out, as in case of dullness, what happens is you tune to 91.5, your jazz station, and you head down to Burnaby or something. And there could be lots of radio stations between here and there, and you don't change the dial. You're tuned to 91.5, but 1 mile south, you all of a sudden an unchosen radio station, some political right-wing talk radio, has replaced your chosen station. So this is what coarse excitation is all about. Your chosen object, you lose your chosen object, and an unchosen object, which when you pay attention is very likely to be a memory of the past or a fantasy of the future, replaces your chosen object. So we are, in a sense, being what I call shanghaied. So this is where you are, if you guys are like me, when I was at Diamond Mountain especially, I would be doing a 1 hour meditation in the morning, and I could sit down and basically 59 minutes later, the timer would go off, and I would realize, oh my God, I don't know where I've been, but I certainly wasn't meditating on my chosen object. And this, you can be distracted for an entire hour. But let's just be generous and say 10 minutes, that you are shanghaied for 10 minutes. And so, in shanghaied is this Americanism that I'm sure you probably all know too, right? Shanghaied is, you know what that means? In Sacramento, California, this came out of gold rush days. And the Chinese miners would bring in their sack of gold dust and trade it for whiskey at the local saloon. I actually saw this on a historical plaque in old Sacramento last year. And so the Chinese miners then would get drunk and finally run out of gold dust. And then when they were so loaded, there's in this particular saloon that had the plaque, they would throw the miner then through a trapdoor behind the bar, and then give them some other drug, and then load them onto a ship on the Sacramento River that would take them down to San Francisco Bay and on their way to China. And so they would wake up then from this drug, and they would be out at sea on their way to China. So this is being the origin of the word Shanghai. So this is very much like our meditation experience of distraction, or excitation, I should say. We choose an object to anchor our attention, and our attention drifts off that and is taken by an unchosen object, and 10 minutes later we wake up, wondering, how did I get here? I have no idea. All I remember is the last image of this train that must have taken me here, of association. So this is like non-lucid dreaming. In non-lucid dream, you wake up and all you can remember is the end, and then maybe with some training especially, you can begin to reconstruct what came before that, what came before that, what came before that. But so non-lucid excitation, you just kind of wake up and go, wow, how did I get here? I have no idea. So this is what we're training ourselves to remain lucidly awake and try to eliminate these long periods of non-lucid excitation where we just go off and it's just one thing after another. But we're not really conscious of what's going on while we're doing it. So because of this basic fact of that the mind can only be aware of one thing at a time, we're choosing to anchor our attention with a chosen object. So it doesn't matter what object we choose to anchor our attention then. We could use some yoga text, say a candle flame. Last week until 2 days ago, I was choosing to meditate on Venice Beach and the sights and sounds of the ocean. So you can choose a number of different things to anchor your attention to develop stability. But the Buddha said, if your mind is prone to distraction, to being shanghaied, there's one object in particular that is the best, and that is the breath. The breath has a couple of unique qualities that make it very well suited as an object to anchor your attention. One is that it's stable over time. So the breath, you could say, is the same object from, at time 3 and we'll say time 7, as it is at time 1. So when watchfulness checks in after every 7 breaths to see, are you on your chosen object, it can say definitively yes or no, because it knows the object of your attention is the breath. So if you're on the breath, you are not in the ditch of excitation, and if you are not on the breath, you are in the ditch of excitation. So it's stable enough so that watchfulness can clue you whether you have lost your object or not. So you could choose a really stable object, like this cup, or a rock. Padmasambhava actually says start out with a rock, a very, very stable object. So at time 7 and time 14 and time 21 and time 6 million, it's the same object. It's very stable. So stability or continuity of an object is very good for promoting stability. It really helps that. You choose an object that is not changing constantly. But the thing about a rock is that it is so constant that it can be boring, as an object. Very challenging because your mind is just seeking stimulation. So it's going to go off into fantasy or memory for some entertainment, because this rock is just so damn boring. So the Buddha said that the breath is really an excellent object because not only is it constant, but it's ever-changing also. So it's alive, it's dynamic. The beginning of an in-breath is different than the end of an out-breath. It's just fascinating. And so it holds your attention. So that is the continuity of the object is really good for promoting stability. And then the fascinating, ever-changing nature of it really promotes clarity. So it's a very, very good object. So just in case there are any Gelugpas in the room who might find themselves on a debate ground someday, having to defend their chosen object of the breath, and your attacker is saying, the breath is an impure object, don't you know? You should choose a visual image. How do you defend yourself? On the debate ground, there's always a number of ways that you can defend yourself. You can defend logic. You can use the base of your experience and say, try it and see. You'll really like it. But also, one of the fail-safe ways is to invoke Scripture, right? So I didn't make this up. Alan Wallace didn't make this up. Those Hinayanas didn't make it up. The Theravadins didn't make it up. This is what the Buddha said. The Buddha said, if your mind is prone to excitation, the best object to choose to anchor it is the breath. So just in case on the debate ground the Buddha doesn't carry water for whoever you're debating with. And sometimes that's the case, with Mahayanas, because we have, our own Nalanda. If you can choose somebody who is from Nalanda, that would be, a lot better. Thank you. So how about a sangha? On the debate ground, if you always need to call up an authority on wisdom, you invoke the name of Arya Nagarjuna, right? And if it's always a matter of method, the best that you can do is Arya Sangha. So this is what Arya Sangha had to say about this matter. Quote, "If involuntary thoughts particularly dominate your behavior, then focus the mind in mindfulness of the exhalation and inhalation of the breath." Any doubts about that? How about Pabanka Rinpoche, who spends a large part of the quiescence section describing how you should use a visual image to focus your attention on, like the image of a Buddha or a statue of a Buddha or your teacher. He had this to say in the quiescence section, quote, "Those who have trouble controlling discursive thinking should focus the mind on the breath." There's nothing really ambiguous about these statements. It's okay. And in fact, if you're one of the 99.999% of people who this is a problem for, the ruminating mind, what they're advising you is to take the breath as your object. And in fact, Pabanka Rinpoche called this the forceful method of stopping excitation. So when I say take the breath as your object, or you hear this term watch the breath, what does that mean? Does it mean that we're going to be relating to the experience of the breath like some pranayamas do, pranayamas that I have spent a lot of time doing, where you're visualizing the breath enter your nose and then enter your body and perhaps do some things in the subtle body and then leave the body again, and exit as a stream that you're focusing projects out 10 feet and then out to the next wall and then back in again. No, you're not doing that. So what does it mean when I say watch the breath or focus your attention on the breath? It means focus your attention on the tactile sensations of the breath, the sense of touch. So this is in the felt there is only the felt. And so what we're going to be doing then to anchor our attention is to focus our bare attention, meaning we're isolating one sense field to focus on and not a conceptual map of the body. We're going to be focusing on tactile sensations or you could say associated with the breath. So what we are focusing on is tactile sensations, and tactile sensations associated with the breath, the inhalation and exhalation. And we are going to start, first of all, I'll be talking about a lot of continuums we have in Shamatha, and there are more continuums coming up this weekend. And so this continuum, Shamatha is a lot about continuums of coarse to subtle. And so tactile sensations, one of the really great reasons why tactile sensations of the 5 sense fields is really a great sense field to focus on, is because of this continuum of coarse to subtle. And so we are going to choose to begin with an object, a tactile sensation over here on the coarse end. And that is so a very coarse tactile sensation that we'll be working with tomorrow is pain. So we're not going to ask you to do that yet, because pain is not a good shamatha object. It's very good for vipassana, but it's not good for shamatha. So we're going to choose a coarse tactile sensation of the breath, and a very coarse tactile sensation is the abdomen, the movement of the abdomen. So our next meditation then will do that. We'll focus only on tactile sensations at the abdomen associated with the movement of the air in and out of your body. And this is, again, a very good one to do in Shavasana, because when you are lying down, the abdomen is moving up and down. It's rising and falling. So this is very coarse and easy to find. And if you are sitting, most people are sitting with a slight Uddiyana Bandha here, a slight tension in your abdomen it helps to keep your spine straight. And so this kind of inhibits the movement of the abdomen in and out. So this one, let's do again in Shavasana. So again, if you need to use the restroom so that you won't be distracted, go ahead. And then the rest of us will find our meditation position in Shavasana. Withdraw your attention from the sights and sounds of the room into the domain of your body and give your full attention there to tactile sensations only. Noticing first these sensations of solidity and firmness where your body is contacting the floor. Your heels, the back of your legs, your hips, your lower back, shoulders, arms, wrists. The sensation of your body resisting becoming a puddle. These are very grounding sensations, the earth element. And notice the degree of clarity of your attention now, that feeling of brightness, of the engagement and freshness of interest you have in your object. And try to maintain that degree of clarity as you deepen your relaxation. Now let your attention roam throughout the body, noticing tactile sensations wherever they arise. And if you notice any tension or any pain, let your breath be drawn to it, and then release that tension or pain on the next exhalation. In the felt, there is only the felt. Now take 3 deep, full breaths and notice the tactile sensations associated with the breath wherever you feel them in your body. And now, having established the base of relaxation and balanced that relaxation with clarity, we'll cultivate stability by giving our attention an object to anchor it. So focus your full moment-to-moment bare attention now at the abdomen. Just noticing the rising and falling of the abdomen. Focusing only on tactile sensations there. And now, having identified your object, the tactile sensations at the abdomen, use those tactile sensations only to mark the beginning and the end of each in-breath and out-breath, without conceptual overlay. Settle the breath in its natural state, which means that you give up all control of it. You don't try to equalize it, to lengthen it or shorten it. This is not pranayama. You surrender all control and let the body breathe itself. And on the basis only of these tactile sensations, you simply note the beginning and the end of each in-breath and out-breath, without preferring that it be different. Having given up all control, you may notice that some breaths are deep and some breaths are shallow. If the breath is shallow, you may feel only the abdomen moving. If there's more volume, you may notice first the abdomen and the diaphragm moving. And if the body takes a deep breath, you may notice the abdomen, the diaphragm, and then the chest expanding. Simply notice without attempting to control it. Continue releasing and relaxing all the way through the end of the out-breath. Deepening your relaxation while maintaining the balance with clarity. While you are focused on tactile sensations, your attention may be drawn by a sound. Simply note it and release your attention, and then return to tactile sensations at the abdomen. Expand your attention again to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Stretch your legs and your arms overhead. And then roll over to your right side. And sit up and return to your seat. So this evening, you get just a slight taste of that, before we have to move on. And that's the beautiful thing about retreat, or about the your community practice day, where you get to the luxury of practicing for long periods. That in retreat you would get 3 or 4 gatakas, 24-minute sessions to work on that, and really become familiar with it before moving on. But we are going to move on, and if it's 9 o'clock now, and so if you have to move on, that's okay. But we're going to, those of you who can stay for a little bit longer, I'll move on also into a little over to the more subtle side of the continuum again now for objects of our attention. So we started with the coarse object of sensations of the breath at the abdomen, which is a very good choice if, for instance, you've just had a performance review, either at work or in your relationship. And, that's all that you can think of. And you're trying to meditate, and all that dominates your mind is what he, she said. And you would like to be able to focus your attention on something else. So in that case then, Shavasana and the coarse object of sensations of the breath at the abdomen is a very good choice, because it can break the cycle of that loop of just constantly rehearsing that past event, because what you're doing is you're obsessing about the past, right? You're ruminating. And what you would like to do is to focus on the present moment of the breath. Wouldn't that feel liberating if you could do that? And if you had the choice, if you developed the skill so that whenever you wanted to, you could turn off the ruminating mind. So this would be a very good choice then when that happens. And so we're going to then move now towards a more subtle object, which has great benefits. The problem, again, with a coarse object is that it can lead to dullness. It can be so relaxed that you just begin to fall asleep. So if excitation is not your problem, and you have established that base of relaxation, you would want to move towards the continuum towards clarity in both your posture and the object that you're choosing. So now we'll practice with the more moving towards clarity by choosing a sitting position, and we're going to choose a more subtle object of tactile sensations of the breath at the nose. So this is a much more subtle tactile sensation. And this has some really great benefits. So simply by choosing a more subtle object, it requires, because it is not the expansion and contraction of the abdomen, but just the movement of air against the nose hairs and the skin, and noticing a difference of temperature perhaps, which is also a tactile sensation. Because these sensations are so much more subtle, if you are going to engage with them at all, it requires more acute attention. So you really have to increase acuity. And what that does then is it reveals a more fascinating object. The more acute attention reveals a fascinating, subtle object. And that subtle object then holds your attention more because it's a fascinating object. That then helps promote stability, and that stability then reveals itself also as clarity. And so you develop this synergetic, virtuous upward spiral of simply by choosing a more subtle object, demanding more acute attention, it supports the development of both stability and clarity. So this is something that only happens if you choose tactile sensations as your object. It doesn't happen with visual images, which is a very good reason to choose tactile sensation because of this continuum of coarse to subtle. And so you can then choose. What you are doing is developing, as you focus on more and more subtle tactile sensations, what you are doing is developing qualitative vividness, meaning that you can become aware of things in the tactile domain that you weren't aware of yesterday or at the beginning of your session, because your vividness, the qualitative vividness, is becoming more and more acute. So at times the volume of your breath, as your mind becomes more and more quiet, the volume of your breath naturally becomes less and less. And so that manifests as more and more subtle sensations at the tip of the nose. And that can become so subtle that you can't feel it anymore. So what do you do then? Do you inhale deeply so that you can feel it again? Well, there is an alternative. What you can do is to recalibrate the acuity of your attention at the pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. So you set the meter to 0, and then what you'll do, and then you'll be able to notice the first sensations that arise with the first movement, because you have recalibrated to no motion, no sensation. You'll notice the first sensations then. So you can really begin to apply this, and tomorrow, I think we'll do, if we have time, we'll do something that we did in retreat, where you begin to develop qualitative vividness by focusing on sensations of the breath in places you've never looked for it before, like your fingertips, for instance. And this is an incredible exercise. And this is what some traditions use as a way of going through all 9 stages. You just develop more and more qualitative vividness with more and more subtle sensations. So what you begin to realize then is that prana, which is that energy that you feel in subtle body practice, in yogic traditions and tantra, you can begin to realize that my relationship with subtle body practice has been nothing but a mental map, a conceptual overlay. And I have just been, it's been like a subway map with lights going off at the next stop. And in fact, by practicing qualitative vividness, I can actually experience prana as a tactile sensation. So that's where you can go, and that's the whole intent of subtle body practice, is to experience it as tactile sensation. Because that's how you move your awareness to a particular part of the body. And we're going to really begin to experience that tomorrow in the first session. We'll be working on that element. You can also now, so one other thing that you can do aside from recalibrating to 0 at the pause. So when I talk about the tip of the nose, placing your attention at the tip of the nose also, that can sound like here. But what you will probably notice is that the most sensitive place to feel the inhalation is right here for me, it's right here in the corner of the nostril, right where the corner of the nostril meets the upper lip. So that's a very sensitive place for me to feel the inhalation. And then what I have noticed in retreats lately is something that Goenkaji described. And that is that, so they talk about the alternatives for these subtle sensations being the nostrils, meaning the rim of the nostrils. For me, I just call it the corner of the nostrils here, or the upper lip. So where is this upper lip? It's not the lip that you kiss with or put lipstick on. It's right below, it's the upper lip, the bulge there right below the nostrils, there's a very sensitive patch of skin there. And you may have this interesting experience as you begin to explore that area, that you may not feel anything there at all until your attention becomes quite stable at the corner of the nostrils. And then all of a sudden, it'll come alive, and then it's unbelievable because it's a big patch. It's like everything underneath your nostrils, and you may experience that you feel the inhalation very distinctly as kind of a steady rate, kind of flat level of sensation here at the tip of the nostrils. But the exhalation, if I had more time, I could diagram this, why this would be the case, is with the bellows, will be more pronounced at the beginning of the exhalation, and then you feel a point where you lose sensation, and it feels like, oh, that must be the pause before the next inhalation. But what you may discover is that you've just lost sensation, and that you really haven't. There's still a little more exhalation, but it's become so subtle that you have lost it. So at some point, you may notice as your attention becomes very stable, all of a sudden, wow, the upper lip becomes alive, lighted. And what you may notice is that the inhalation is very pronounced right here at the corner of the nostrils, but the exhalation you feel more prominently and more flat, rather than like that, declining half until you can't feel it anymore halfway through the exhalation at the upper lip here. So you might play with that. And then just a couple of more things before we do this next meditation. The key to stability is the exhalation. So this is all of you people from retreat have been experimenting now to try to prove me wrong on my old hypothesis that you will never lose your object on the inhalation, right? So we need to, now it's time to get together and compare results. But it's as you're releasing your attention on the exhalation that you're most likely going to lose your object of attention, your focus on the object. So give your full attention, redouble your attention on the exhalation all the way to the final instant before there's a brief pause, before the weight of the atmosphere just spontaneously fills your lungs again. So try to give yourself the target of reaching that pause. Be aware of the pause before the next inhalation. So if you give yourself that target of maintaining your focus on the breath all the way to the final instant, and you succeed, then you get a free ride on the next inhalation, because according to me, you're never going to lose your object on the inhalation, right? So you only have to pay attention half the time, sort of. And then you can, just one other little trick, you can count your breath, and that may or may not be helpful. So for some people it becomes a distraction. And for people who have tried it and discarded it as a distraction, it could be that what they've been doing is droning the count. So 1, 2, and then you're proving to yourself that you can count to 10. So the practice of counting your breath is that you would count from 1 to 10. Then, some instructions say count backwards from 10 to 1 again, or start over at 1. But honestly, I think if you make it to 10, then just stop counting. You don't need it anymore. But when you start this, you probably won't get to 3. And that just really emphasizes to you, oh, how distracted I am. But if you are going to count, you can really use it to give yourself the exhalation a target, your attention a target. So you punctuate the final instant of the out breath. Briefly, you punctuate it. 1, 2, 3. And so if you do that, that then gives your attention another destination to arrive at. And you know you have reached it if you remember to count. Okay? So one more thing. So when you discover that you have been shanghaied, and wake up 10 minutes later and wonder, how did I get here? You need to develop a new reflex. So the strict dad can become a dog trainer also and say, heel, get back here, stay, sit. So just like the strict dad, telling you to shut up, that's counterproductive because it introduces tension. So instead of doing that, what you do is you need to develop a new reflex. Give up the dog trainer and develop the 3 R's. So this is, Alan Wallace taught this as relax, release, return. But in my experience, it's works, it seems more reasonable and helpful to think of it, these 3 R's as release first. Because what you have to do first is release your grasp on the distracting object. So because you realize, it's not that someone has come up with a chloroform rag behind me, and thrown me in the trunk, and here I am waking up in Saskatoon and wondering how the hell did I get here. I have willingly gone along on this journey because why? By most often, a distracting object is going to be a desirous object, something that you are fantasizing about or remembering with fondness, and so you are grasping onto it and going off with it willingly. So the first thing you do is release your grasp on the distracting object, then you return to your chosen object, and then because the whole problem was grasping, the tension of grasping, you relax ever more deeply on the next exhalation. So you release, return, relax. And then just very briefly, for the seated posture, the whole idea is first is to be comfortable. Keep your spine erect. That's the whole point of seated posture. You can sit in a variety of cross-legged positions. The one that Master Swatmarama said is the most important asana of all of them in Hatha Yoga Pradipika is Siddhasana, where your lower heel is touching your perineum in your groin, and then your upper foot is tucked into the crease between your thigh and your calf. So this is very stable, very comfortable. This is what you see in the Theravadan traditions. You see the Buddha carved in this position rather than in lotus. So this is very comfortable, and you can sit for long periods of time in this. The whole idea in Shamatha practice, though, is be comfortable. And so if you are in the seated position in a chair, which is perfectly fine, it's an excellent position. If that's more comfortable than sitting on the floor, come out to the edge of your chair, don't sit against the back. You can also put a cushion on the seat of the chair so that you can roll your hips forward, and then if that raises your feet off the ground, you can put a cushion underneath your feet also. And then your head is not tipped to either shoulder, and then your head is not tipped back or forward. So this is really a very important tip here, that the elevation of your chin. If your head is erect and it's level, your chin is level. And what you'll notice is that if introspective awareness alerts you that you're becoming dull, what's probably happened is your chin has dropped. And if you are feeling distracted, just check. It's probably that you are even slightly your chin is elevated. So you can use this chin, play with this, to stay in your sweet spot on the road, out of the ditches of excitation and dullness. So that's important. And then just one last thing, a lot of people at the beginning have problems, say I'm constantly swallowing saliva, and that's a distraction. What do I do about that? Well, once you have produced the saliva, you don't have much choice but either to spit it or swallow it. So, one is preferable to the other. But especially in a group. But when you are, so the whole idea is to control the production of saliva, and the way to do that is with your tongue. So you just kind of lightly curl your tongue and place it at the top of your teeth, kind of between your upper palate and the top of your teeth. And that just stops the production of saliva. Okay? So we'll then do a short meditation before we send you home. And so you can choose your favorite seated position then. And begin by settling the body in its natural state. By withdrawing your attention from the room and focusing only on tactile sensations within the domain of the body. Noticing first, again, this feeling of solidity and firmness where your seat contacts the floor. Now let your attention roam throughout the body, noticing whatever tactile sensations announce themselves. Be it an itch, a flutter, a trembling, a sensation of heat or cold, moisture. And if you notice any sensation of tension or pain, let your breath be drawn to it and release that tension or pain on the next out-breath. Deepening your relaxation as if with an inaudible sigh. Note the degree of clarity that you have at the beginning of your meditation. And if you notice that your attention is sliding towards dullness or drowsiness, refresh the brightness of your attention on the inhalation. Now, having established the base of relaxation and balanced relaxation and clarity, we introduce stability by giving our attention an object to focus on. So first of all, focus your attention on the coarse sensation of the movement of the abdomen. Noting these sensations with bare attention. In the felt, there is only the felt. Now shift your attention to the corner of the nostrils and notice their tactile sensations only. Let your attention be a stable gatekeeper, noticing the movement of the air in and out, but remaining itself unmoved. Notice the increase in clarity that is possible by choosing this more subtle object, which demands more acute attention. The key to stability is the exhalation. Give the out-breath your full attention to the final instant before the brief pause before the next inhalation. You can count your breath if that is helpful. If watchfulness alerts you that your attention has been shanghaied, release your grasp on the distracting object. Return to your chosen object and relax ever more deeply on the next out-breath. If you notice that as you deepen your relaxation, you are becoming drowsy or dull, Brighten the quality of your attention by focusing on the tactile sensations of the inhalation at the nose. The length of your meditation session is one cycle of in-breath and out-breath. Deepen your relaxation with each out-breath. And revive your clarity with each in-breath. So what we have been working on tonight is Shamatha practice, which is all about developing stability and vividness of your attention. But that's just the start of the whole progression. So this weekend what we're going to be doing is taking the next step in that progression. What do you do once you have established stable, vivid attention? What do you do with it? What is the contemplative science which you use to employ this contemplative technology? So what the Buddha said is that you focus your mindful attention in 4 different domains. And so we're going to examine those 4 different domains with this stable, vivid attention tomorrow and run experiments. So the first experiments that we'll run tomorrow will be largely employing these techniques that we've just been familiarizing or refamiliarizing ourselves with. So if this is your first introduction to these techniques, you have everything you need right now to really jump into the practice of Vipassana tomorrow. And for those of you who have been working on this and developing stable, vivid attention for the past year, you're going to really be able to jump right in tomorrow. Once you develop stability then with the focusing on tactile sensations of the breath then, you have a choice in the traditions of Shamatha. You could either continue to refine the qualitative vividness and become more and more sensitive to very subtle sensations, or you could do as Padmasambhava recommends, is that you choose a more subtle object still, which is the appearances in the space of the mind. So this is what we'll be doing on Sunday then. Tomorrow we'll be working with tactile sensations and doing a Vipassana inquiry on tactile sensations in 2 different domains, the domain of the body and the domain of tactile feelings. And then on Sunday we'll be experimenting with this settling the mind in its natural state. So for those of you who this would be a new technique for, you'll get everything that you need to discover this new practice of taking appearances within the space of the mind as the object which you're focusing on. And then once we discover those objects, we'll be again doing Vipassana inquiry about them. Are they impermanent? Do they have a self? Are they a true source of pleasure or pain? And then discovering what the truth of our own experience is. So this is then the beauty of this progression that Alan Wallace teaches, in that the shamatha, the techniques of meditation that you have been using to develop stability and vividness roll naturally into Vipassana practice, where you're doing experiential inquiry. And this is really an exhilarating discovery, I think. I'm really excited about this. So I hope that you can come back then tomorrow at noon, and we will begin experimenting in these 4 domains of human experience. So thank you. Sorry I kept you late. I hope for those of you who are familiar with this, it was a good review. And for those of you who this is an introduction for, that you're intrigued by this practice. And tomorrow you will be able to employ these techniques for doing the entire Vipassana inquiry practice. So thank you. See you tomorrow at noon.
Thank you, Doug.
Yes.
There's a time change this weekend, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, so
Sunday?
that's Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Saturday
Okay.
night.
Yeah.
You get an extra hour.
Yeah, between Saturday and Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You get an extra hour on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, fall back.
Fall closing, that's why.
That's 2 Gatikas, right?
Yeah, right. Don't set your clock back and then show up early for 2 Gatikas. Fred's going to lead them.
If anybody wants to know more about the retreat that's going to happen next end of February, actually, beginning of March.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I have more information in the form of little half-page pamphlets over there, and you can also talk to me or Christine or Sarah.
Thank you.